Roots of Pacha is a new farming sim game that's set in the Stone Age, and the creators have said it's in part a tribute to Concerned Ape, the developer of Stardew Valley. It's currently in development and set to release in the second quarter of 2022 on Steam and Nintendo Switch, with Xbox and PlayStation versions following shortly afterwards. Roots of Pacha is being made by a small studio called Soda Den, which is run by two brothers. The beautiful pixel art on their Kickstarter campaign immediately grabbed my attention, so I decided to reach out to the developers to see if they might be up for an interview. They kindly agreed to answer my questions about their team, the spark for the game, combat, and much more. Before we get into the Q&A, I'd like to properly introduce the two main people behind the game first, and explain a bit of their history. The two brothers, Timo and Johnny, are mostly running their indie studio from Cordoba, Argentina, since most of the team lives there. Timo, however, lives in San Diego, California. The two brothers were born in Chile, since their family had to move there for a while for their dad's work. Timo doesn't remember much from that part of his life, but one thing he'll never forget is his brother teaching him how to play Super Mario Bros. One game Timo liked in particular was Mario Paint. They moved back to Argentina a few months before Timo turned 6 years old, and the change of setting was somewhat difficult for the two brothers. Timo explained to me that they felt out of place. They had different accents than the kids at their school and their extended family they barely knew. Therefore, the two brothers, along with their older sister, grew closer to each other and would meet up during school breaks to support each other. When they were about 8 and 9, they took a memorable trip to Villa General Belgrano. When Timo and Johnny were packing for the trip, they decided to take a PS1 with them, just in case they had some time to play after taking outdoor trips. Along with the console, they also packed a new copy of Harvest Moon Back to Nature that Johnny had just bought. Once they plugged it into the cabin's TV, the two brothers were hooked. They jammed to the main menu track, named their character Tijo, or sometimes Jody, so both of them would be happy, and gave the dog the name of Rufo. At some point during the game, the main character meets a girl and they start humming a song together. To this day, the brothers still whistle that same song together and gives them goosebumps every time. Needless to say, experiencing Harvest Moon together was a special time for Timo and Johnny. They became a little more distant during their teenage years, with Johnny getting more into music like playing guitar and drums, and Timo burying himself in books and exploring nature with his friends. Even though they were more apart during this time, they would still play games together. That was their moment, a way to connect and keep their relationship alive. Eventually, they ended up going to the same university, and even though they majored in different subjects, they still worked together and gave each other advice. Their brotherhood was back in full force. Alright, let's get into the development questions now. Just FYI, I don't have the proper setup right now to record a traditional interview in good quality, so the questions were answered over email so that I was still able to make the video interesting to watch and listen to. Do you have any prior experience with game development, or is this your first proper game? Roots of Pacha is their very first game. They did some game jams together in the past, but they were all really small projects. It's curious how you two are brothers and both ended up in game development. How did that come about? Their dad Claudio introduced them to computers when Timo and Johnny were really young and wanted them to get familiar with technology. He sent them both to computer classes where they were tasked with programming in Visual Basic. Timo majored in computer science and Johnny got a degree in film and TV. They started working together as software developers even before they graduated, and kept doing that until 2019. Timo would take care of the back-end programming, while Johnny was in charge of the front-end. Their salary was more than able to support them, but their jobs didn't make them feel complete. Johnny was the first one to talk to Timo about quitting his job to follow his dream of becoming a game developer, but said he wouldn't feel complete without his brother, and asked if Timo would join him in his new journey. Timo didn't hesitate for a second. How did you come into contact with Pixel Dancer and the other members of your team? Once Timo and Johnny decided that Roots of Pacha was going to have a pixel art style, they started asking around for a pixel artist. Johnny knew an ex-colleague named Rodrigo Bertello, who's a 3D animation professor at a local university. He asked if his students had any experience with pixel art, and Pixel Dancer, who was sitting in the classroom, answered timidly. At the same time, Johnny was also looking around on the internet for any local artists, and that's when he found a pixel art map of Argentina, made by none other than Pixel Dancer. There was something about the simplicity of the art piece and the details of the animations that immediately caught Johnny's eyes. They organized a meeting and met up in a cafe where they talked about the project. It was an instant match. Paulina Riva, a 2D artist, joined the team after Pixel Dancer recommended her. She can't work full-time on the project because she already has a full-time job with her family, but Timo and Johnny really love her creativity and enthusiasm about the project. She's also the most active in their dev Discord server. Luca Garimaldi was next. He's one of Johnny's best friends and worked with the brothers in software development in the past. Luca has a minor degree in game development and is a programming technician. Afterwards, the developers contacted Santiago Baravalle and David Ames, a local composer and sound designer that worked with Johnny in some movie shorts back in the day. Both are amazing at what they do and are very passionate, always figuring out how they can improve the sound. The last member to join the team just before launching their Kickstarter campaign was Boris Torondel. He's an incredible concept artist from Cordoba whose work is really stunning and he's proven to be really good at pixel art too, Johnny explained. What was the initial spark to start working on this game? This spark happened during a brainstorming session when they were discussing all kinds of genres. History was also a frequent topic during all the sessions, so one day a question arose. What if you are the first farmer ever? That was the spark, and they instantly fell in love with the idea. All the dots suddenly started to connect. Harvest Moon is their favorite game, and Stardew Valley had rekindled that fire. Johnny and Timo also started to remember their time playing the Egyptian city builder Pharaoh. They love building their own civilization from scratch, and they would even take the time to read the history behind each building. On the Kickstarter, it's mentioned that the Stone Age theme is inspired by the book The Clan of the Cave Bear. Were there any other inspirations that helped shape the Roots of Pacha? Harvest Moon, Back to Nature and Stardew Valley are one of the main inspirations for the game, but Timo and Johnny also played plenty of other farming sims like Rune Factory, My Time at Portia, Graveyard Keeper and more. All of them are a topic of discussion when they're designing features. Games like Pharaoh, Caesar, and the Civilization series are also sources of inspiration when it comes to technologies and progression. Johnny also recalls playing Virtual Villagers, so that might have also subconsciously fed his inspiration for Roots of Pacha. Timo is a gardener himself and loves nature, so that certainly has an impact on Roots of Pacha's development as well. His favorite book is The Clan of the Cave Bear, which he started reading as a teenager and has reread multiple times since. It's a way for him to relax and reflect. The book is part of a series called Earth's Children, and each book tells a different story about characters that face difficult challenges in societies that look simple from the outside but are very complex. Other books that cover prehistoric times and have inspired Roots of Pacha are Circles of Stone and Circles in the Sky by Joan Dar Lambert, as well as a book called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. How might the day and night cycle and the changing of seasons affect gameplay? Right now, the approach is similar to all games in the genre, but with a few twists. Players won't know the exact time until you develop the idea of a sundial and gather the resources to build it. Similarly, the weather forecaster, who's your adoptive grandma and uses her bones to predict rain, will get better at predicting the weather as you develop more ideas. Not all regions will react the same way to the seasons changing. The jungle, for example, will never freeze, and the tundra will always remain frozen. Seasons, weather, and days of the week will influence what kind of animals appear and where. The trailer and the images on the Kickstarter look really impressive and give the impression that you're already pretty deep into development. Are we looking mostly at a vertical slice of the game, or would you rather say that a large chunk of the gameplay mechanics and art assets are already in a sort of pre-alpha stage? It's a bit of a mix of both. The team wants to show where the game could eventually get to, but everything we've seen so far is in-engine with mechanics they've already implemented. Therefore, all the assets we've seen so far are ready to be fully implemented into the game over the course of development. Can we expect some sort of skill tree that allows players to choose and define their own playstyle? Is this where ideas come into play? There's no personal skill tree for now. Defining your own playstyle is certainly possible with the ideas mechanic, however. For example, if a player enjoys farming, they can develop more ideas that will improve their farming abilities. This applies to the other activities in the game as well. The team expects people to eventually develop all ideas, but how they reach that point could vary a lot. The developers would also like to highlight that the ideas mechanic doesn't imply that because one civilization discovered one idea and another one didn't, that the former is better than the latter. Roots of Pacha simply wants to put a spotlight on humanity's ability to work collectively towards common goals, like inventing, discovering, and creating. There's a surprising lack of any mention of combat on the Kickstarter page. Was this a very conscious decision from the beginning, or did this change over time? Combat has been a topic of much conversation between Timo and Johnny. It's changed a lot over the course of development, but they eventually settled on not including a combat system. It was a difficult decision, especially because of the setting. They rather want to focus on the evolutionary and cultural side of the player's village. However, there are still hunter NPCs in the game, and you'll be able to improve hunting abilities through hunting ideas, as it is part of humanity's past, but this will apply to things like fishing and foraging. Can we expect combat being added in the future after all? I'm personally happy to see a farming sim without combat mechanics, but I can imagine lots of players might ask for it. If, and it's a big if according to Timo and Johnny, they end up implementing some kind of combat system, they want it to be entirely optional and isolated, much like the way they're incorporating racing on animals. That's the only way they think it could get implemented in the future. Does the clan evolve and grow? Do NPCs grow families whose children will grow up and work as well? Might we even lose certain NPCs if we're not careful? The Stone Age was a dangerous time, I can imagine. They have some ideas based on life cycles, and the developers certainly want to include birds, but it's not fully defined yet. They understand the association of the Stone Age with dangers and high mortality rates, but it's not really the point of the game. Roots of Pacha doesn't intend to be historically accurate, but tries to evoke the feeling of living in primal times. It looks like Roots of Pacha has been developed with co-op as its main focus. Can we expect a big difference between playing the game by yourself and playing the game with friends? Will playing the game as a single player experience lack certain content or gameplay? Timo and Johnny want to focus on co-op, however they understand there's a lot of players out there that enjoy single player experiences, therefore there won't be any co-op only content, and Roots of Pacha can be fully experienced and enjoyed solo, just like other farming sims like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley. How does multiplayer work exactly? Right now, multiplayer needs a host that's online to invite other players. In other words, players will be able to drop in and out of multiplayer sessions, but not the host. A maximum of 4 players can play simultaneously. Something that immediately appealed to me is a similarity with Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon. The pixel art in particular looks gorgeous. Besides the Stone Age setting, how are you putting your own spin on the farming simulator genre? It seems like there's a bigger focus on connecting with nature and growing your community. The team believes their main twist to the genre is the clan ideas mechanic. Players will continuously progress and absorb more knowledge. They'll make more buildings and better tools, while also meeting more animals and other NPCs that can be added to the clan. Timo and Johnny believe the Stone Age is the best setting they could have chosen. It's a point in time when everything still needed to be discovered. You've got this blank slate, and it's your chance to develop the history of your civilization. I noticed the inclusion of caves on the Kickstarter. What can we expect from those? Will they be randomly generated dungeons or more linear handcrafted levels? At the moment, the devs are planning to handcraft the caves just like the rest of the map. Caves are places where the player can find minerals, metals, and other resources for developing ideas and upgrading tools. Because of the lack of combat, they're adding puzzles inside the caves to keep players engaged. Players might even stumble on some very old cave paintings while exploring. The spiritual aspects like the goddess Pacha look really interesting. Is there more information you could share about that, and how might it affect the gameplay? The aforementioned caves will give players access to totemic animals that are Pacha's way to communicate with humans. They will challenge the player with some puzzles and give you access to their powers. For example, you'll be able to transmute into an owl to reach places you couldn't before. How long approximately can people play the game before they hit the end? Timo and Johnny expect to have at least 40 hours of content. Will there be endgame content to keep people playing after witnessing the ending? The team is trying to add content that will keep people playing after developing every idea. Of course, there are always self-imposed challenges like getting all seeds without trading, or only getting crops from the wildlands and never planting them, but they want to offer more than that. If the game is successful enough, are you planning on any post-release content? Do you see this as a project that could span many years? The studio would love to add more content after release. They have some stretch goals on their Kickstarter right now that are not yet revealed and would fit perfectly as post-release content. Hopefully this project will turn into something they can keep adding to. They're confident they can continue to come up with more ideas to implement in the game. For example, their Discord community mentioned that inventing electricity with rare magnets could have happened in the Stone Age. On the other hand, they have more ideas for new projects that they eventually want to execute as well. Perhaps they could keep expanding Roots of Pacha while simultaneously starting new projects. That's it for the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if Roots of Pacha seems like your type of game, it's still possible right now to donate to the Kickstarter to help make Timo and Johnny's vision for the game a reality. I've put all the relevant links in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.